of bloggy sort of thing and have a little chat about what is in my garage. I've had it for 2 years now, I've learnt a few things, and I thought I'd pass them on. So let's have a little look. We'll start with the bit you just watched. So, access. You need secure, you want ease of use, you want it to not take up any space. Which is why, if you've got a tool room, which you want, because you obviously want a ramp, roller shutters. Now this one was installed before we moved in. It used to be a big open building, this, with a big archway in the centre there. So this used to just be a big archway, and obviously now it's a roller shutter. Roller shutter is very good for all of those reasons. So up and over door, for example, you'll lose height because it has to come up and over. Yeah. Swing away doors, if they swing out, yeah, no, nothing wrong with that. Swing in, absolutely useless. Also, they're as secure as you make them, aren't they? A door in general, very good. Say this was an open archway, that's not very secure. All your stuff will roll out if you drop it, if you're on a hill. This one is very nice. It's a very nice roller shutter. It's very wide. If I lived in a bit of a dodgy area, you can get additional locks for the base of them. This one though, electric, has a bad point. We're seeing this continuity, it's the next day. We were talking about roller shutters. Now, as I was saying, very good solution. Don't take up much space. If you've got plenty of height, brilliant, because you don't lose any height in having the actual roller of the shutter up there. But if they're automatic, one thing to consider, which I've learnt with experience, is how it's controlled. So if you've got an auto up, auto down on one button, like that, you have to have a safety edge. Now, the safety edge is basically a little tube that runs along the bottom, and when that's squashed, it breaks a beam of light, and that stops the door. The controller for which is attached to the very bottom of the door. Now, even if you don't have a river that sometimes comes up and says hello, it's a stupid place for these. That survived well, hasn't it? Yeah. Because they're right at the bottom of the door. So I think these rubbish. I would definitely spec a door controller with a safety beam instead. So basically you have two sensors that send a beam of light across the door. When that beam is broken, it stops. Or just have it on a safety switch. Dead man switch. So to go up and down, you have to press and hold a button. Done. So much easier. Or auto up only and then hold a button for down. Roller shutters, very good. Very expensive though, I should think. I bet that was £3,000. It's a 5 metre door by 2.5, I think. But it looks very good. You can have them colour coded, like that one. Comes in the same slate grey as everything else. Next. Tool storage. Before we talk about tools, you need somewhere to put them. Now, roller cabs, top boxes, pegboards, magnet strips, all very good. Let's start with cupboards though. I got this lovely thing. My first ever socket set was made by Judor, I think they're German. It came from my granddad. These are brilliant. I've not really seen them for sale very much, but you can get a wall mounted cupboard quite easily. A few drawers at the bottom, hanging parts, and here we just have, I saw it's my specialist tool cupboard and random metal plate of a Riley Imp. But I like to keep the specialist stuff separate. So we got spring compressors, valve spring compressors, coil spring compressors, torque wrenches, pipe bender, a couple of pullers, big pairs of Stilsons. Very violent tool, but certainly works. Dial gauge lives in there as well. We got some measuring gear. This is nice. This is an accelerometer sort of thing. So it actually measures RPM. Or it's a tacho, I guess, isn't it? Is that right? Tacho? Yeah, probably. Lovely though, isn't it? I mean, it's made by Smiths, so obviously it doesn't work, but no, it does work. I think it does work. These are Ace, just off Amazon, 25 quid. USB-C camera, boroscope, just connects into your phone. Brilliant thing. Timing light, just a cheapo one. Remember that if you watch Land Rover videos? It's the funny socket that does the back of the output shaft. I made this a while ago. It's for testing injectors. All it is an old Bosch style plug, battery clamps, and then just on, off. Very good if you've got old injectors, because very briefly putting full 12 volts for injectors is very good for unsticking them. You usually have a resistor pack somewhere, and your actual voltage to an injector is lower than 12 volts in running, 9, something like that. So, chain wrenches, that is for breaking your motorcycle chain or installing a motorcycle chain. Compression tester and adapters. That's an OBD plug to USB. I think I bought that for a P38 Range Rover to do the air suspension. And tyre depth gauge thing in there. And then we have a large selection of hand reamers, big drill bits for drilling out spigot bearings. I don't know whether that video's out yet. And a little red box or something in it. The other things that usually live in here are ball joint splitters, but we'll get onto those. Oh, and they're pins for paddock stands that go underneath the front of a motorbike. Top box, tool trolley. You've seen this poor thing. It gets some hideous abuse, this, doesn't it? For example, entire Land Rover gearboxes. This weighs nothing. I won't go through everything in this. It's just spanners and stuff. The only thing I will mention, you probably know these exist. But they're for organising your sockets. You get them in different sizes, and all your sockets just clip in. And then we just got spanners and stuff. Oh, the only thing we do have that we talked about. Get yourselves riv nut tools. They are brilliant. We talked about those in the pedal box video. Basically, you screw the riv nut onto that, pull that down, and you create a captive thread. And then just some hand riveters, hammer stapler, that's handy. Basically just donk staple. Nothing else massively interesting in there. Pegboard. Now this, as far as I'm concerned, this is quite a big tip. Ignore all the TVR stuff. There's method in my madness. This is from IKEA. It's the cheapo one. It's fantastic. I've not broken a single one. These are all the little attachments and clips and metal. You get various different types, lengths of these. You can see you've got a long one there, short one here, funny shaped ones there, some actual hook shaped ones in there. Fantastic, and so cheap compared to going to tool suppliers. And these little buckets, I'm going to get some more of these. Fantastic for all that sort of stuff. Neatly hiding behind the laptop. Magnet strips. I interchange generally what's in these. Usually whatever I'm using on the day. And they're just fantastic. Really quick. You can chuck whatever on them. These are just from Lidl or Aldi, whichever one Parkside is. And brilliant. You can get some really heavy stuff on there, like that adjustable spanner. So that's variable tool storage. All the cupboards you see up here. Another magnet strip. These are all just, I just made them. Nothing particularly clever or interesting there. But very good way of doing it, really. In no particular order, tools, ball joint splitters. If you're going to work on cars, you need them. They come in all different shapes and sizes. Start with the most basic. Pickle forks. Violent, which means they're good fun. And they come in all different sizes, which you will need. So you can get interchangeable ones like that, and you get different size heads with those. Basically, your ball joint sort of tapered thread needs to slot inside that. You push them between two pieces of metal, thump the back of it, blows it apart. And you get sort of cheapy ones as well. Problem with these, if you aren't going to replace something, they will tear the boot. Next, this little type. Basically, that would go between the metal again. You do this up on the sort of threaded part where you've just taken the bolt off. As you do that up, it pushes the taper through. Very good. This one's very small. I bought it for something specific. Then you get this sort of type. Again, same thing. That sits on the threaded part. That goes between the metal, and you do it up. That is ridiculously old. It's a Sykes Pick-A-Vant one. As you can see, it's had a bit of a life, but it still works very well. This is an interesting one. This is laser, I think. It's just an interesting design, really. It's sort of infinitely adjustable. So you've got a screw thread there, which changes that height, and then you've also got a screw thread here, and that changes that height for pushing the threaded part through. And that's just sort of a modern version of that. Most of those are laser, which is quite good stuff. The thing on the bench, this came from Costco, but it's such a handy thing. So if you have everything on your desk, you're going to go over to the car and do something. You can array everything. So I'm going to take those, I think, and I better take some bolts. Oh, they're the bolts for that. That's the bolt for that. These little rubberized trays, they're silicone, so they'll sort of last forever probably. They're easy to clean if you are that way inclined, which obviously I am not. Generally, just a fantastic organisational tool. Power tools. There's some really obvious ones. Most of these are really obvious. Actually, probably all of them are really obvious, but let's talk about them. Battery grinders. Just a godsend, really. This one's not great. All my battery stuff's Makita. I'm very old, so it's when 3 amp hours was sort of seen to be big. I think if you were buying a set today, 3 amp is too small for something like a grinder. For the little slitting discs, fine, but yeah, get a bigger one if you can. Just a word on these. You see all sorts. DeWalt have the big handle there, big guard and everything. Very, very good. Also massive. I like that Makita one because it's tiny. It's the same size as the normal grinder. So, and if you're doing old cars and you're doing any cars really, and you're doing a bit of welding, size matters. Little mains one as well. On grinder discs, I'd use a few. Standard thick grinding disc. These sort of flap wheel discs, fantastic. For polishing up a weld, nothing better. Don't bother with the thick metal cutting discs, these little slitting ones. Once you've used these, you will never use another. The speed, and it can be any brand, but the speed these go through steel, brilliant. And they use a lot less battery. You'll notice if you put a thick cutting disc in that, it will really struggle. That will go through whatever. And these, now, silicon carbide things, but for removing paint, removing a rusty surface, machining flywheels, as we know, these are outstanding. Buy the cheap ones, is what I found, because the expensive ones last no time, the cheap ones last no time, and they all do the same job. That's those. Looks like Makita. It's not. It's New Master. New Master. Little electric staple nailer thing. What did I buy that for? Trim, stuff like that. Handy. The drill is elsewhere at the moment. Standard, small impact, and a drill. Just putting in wood screws. Light works, taking out small fixings from things. Very quick, very nice. Jigsaw. You can get very hung up, in my opinion, on having a plasma cutter and having all the right gear for cutting metal. But you put a decent blade in a jigsaw, and for cutting out panels, fantastic. If you want to cut out big, long, straight lines, use a full-size disc or a grinder. If you want to go around corners and anything like that, a humble old jigsaw. You want a minimum of 2 batteries, ideally 3, and I'd go 4 or 5 amp hour. Normal combi drill. Small impact. One size up really from the little 1/4 inch screw bit size, but small 1/2 inch ratchet. Impact. Really light, really small. You can get it into small places, and it does carry a decent bit of power. I don't think they're as good as the Milwaukee stuff these days, but again, I think the grinder was under 100 quid. That was under 100 quid on offer. Bare Tools. Bare, not as in a brand Bare Tools, as in like didn't come with a box. Don't need a box. I've got a 5 metre by whatever size this is box, haven't I? And then to be honest, for the big one, yes, it's Clark. Actually, this is okay. Again, I bought this on the VAT-free deal from Machine Mart, which happens every now and again. It's pretty scarily powerful, and it was ridiculously cheap. I'm sure it's well under 100 quid. I don't know what it is now, but it works. And how often do I use it? Not very often. That does probably most things, or just to get a big breaker bar. Are you always trying to find somewhere to put your jacket? Well, somewhere to put a jacket is useful. So, I'm using this Borg Warner T5 gearbox. Bargain as far as coat stands go, only 1,600 quid. And if you find somewhere else to put your jacket, you can put it in a TVR. Now, I don't have that many specialist metalworking tools, but I'd say these are a must. This is from Stacey's. Colin Furs, big fan of Stacey's. And this, just a little bender. It'll do mild up to 2 mil. If you get it right near the edge, you're only doing a bit more. And it's just really well priced. It's not one of the homemade ones. As you can see, it's nicely painted, which certainly wouldn't be me. And you get a nice bend on it, which is really hard to do with a vise. Trying to get a 90-degree bend on something even longer than, say, 100 mil, it's really hard to do by hand. But you can have this screwed to your bench permanently, and all you've got to do is unscrew the handles. And that's all the room it takes up. And you can always unscrew it if it gets in the way. Excuse the mess, but you blow an entire car apart. And then try and have space to do other things. So I would definitely, if you can do any kind of metal work, welding, repairs, whatever, this will change your life. For the princely sum of not a lot. Hot things. Map gas torch. 100% map gas. So map gas itself is not the same as a normal propane torch. MapX, this stuff burns much, much hotter. And my God, does it work. I think when I did my dad's Silver Shadow, I did all of the flexible lines on that, and you're talking 13 lines that have been on there for God knows how long. I can't speak for anyone else. Didn't break a single one, any of the hard lines they're attached to, because you will just get things undone. Heat until it gets mega hot. So you want, you change the colour of stuff really, and then spray some whatever lubricating fluid on it. Heat, spray it over and over and over again, a bit like we did on the Range Rover, and it will come undone. That really hot, spray the oil on, that rapid cooling causes like a capillary action and it sucks the oil down into the threads apparently, but it works. Get yourself a MAP gas torch. 60-70 quid from Toolstation. These, it comes with a load of different heads that I have no idea what difference they make. I've only ever used that one. Fantastic. Welding. I'm not going to go deep into it because there's better videos than mine about welding, and really it's like a half-hour video in itself, but real basics if you're going to get started. So MIG, use gas. So I use a CO2 argon mix, which is 95% argon, 5% CO2, so Argo Shield, I think BOC call it, but everyone does an equivalent, and a decent mask. This is one from GYS, so it's a true colour, which means can you put a GoPro in it? That's fancy, wasn't it? Or that didn't work, did it? Get as big a visor as you can, so you've got a really good peripheral, and that makes all the difference. Again, for working on cars, if you're working at a table making stuff, probably doesn't matter as much. The true colour makes a world of difference. The detail you can see is unbelievable. But even the cheap ones, this piece of rubbish, Impacts. Usually the cooler the name, the rubbisher it is. Rubbisher. This was 30 quid, I think, from Toolstation because my old one broke. And again, works perfectly well. You can still see through it. It's not black and white. You know, you don't just get, you can only see the spark on the old ones, can't you? But look at the difference. This is 100 plus, 30. Look at how small the visor is between the two. And the detail is much better throughout. You can just see everything. This, you can see everything, it's just not quite as clear. So yeah. Welder itself. If you're just getting started, shop around, you will find deals on stuff. I would go for something good second hand, maybe, over the sort of bottom of the range. But then I did use a Clark Clark MIG 150 for ages, and for thick stuff you're fine. If you get below sort of under 1 mil, that's when you start to struggle a bit more. But seriously, decent gas and a decent mask, and then just play with the settings. You'll be good. What we use now is a GYS Smart MIG, which I got absolute bargain on from McKay's in Cambridge. That was 300 and some odd quid versus should be 5, 6. That was X display, and that's what I mean. Shop around. That's brilliant. If you go for smart MIGs, they're inverter welders rather than having a big heavy transformer in them. You can move them around easily. And I had no idea of the difference that would make. So, yeah, if you can get an inverter-driven MIG, awesome. If you're only starting off, check a second-hand one, as long as you can test it, see if it works. Obviously, if you're using gas, don't use flux core wire. Flux core wire is for non-gas welders. Just because it is can be on gas, don't do it. You will struggle like hell. It's so much harder. What gas? Can't go wrong with Hobby Weld, in my opinion. No bottle rental, pretty cheap, and there's suppliers all around the country. And you get them in this size, somewhere around 50 quid, I think, 40, 50 quid. I've only ever used one. This is the second bottle I had. Saying that though, This usually has the welding stuff in it, which is why it's not capped. Do bear in mind, obviously, that argon, whilst it won't kill you, is an oxygen displacer, so it will lower the oxygen in the air. So if you're for some reason welding in a sealed box, be very careful. You shouldn't be doing that anyway, because you get fumes from welding. You should wear a mask. Speak to local suppliers though. If you've got a local steel supplier, someone like that, they usually have something like that, a rental-free bottle company, and there's quite a few now. Hollywell, I think, were the first big ones to do it, because for BOC and stuff you had to pay a load of money. The elephant in the room. So, vehicle access. You're obviously always going to need a jack. So, hydraulic trolley jack, you want small frontal area, so low entry, quick lift, which means when there's no weight on it, you push the handle down and the thing comes up quickly. You can get them cheap, £100 Set of 4 axle stands. Standard ones, you don't really need high ones to start with unless they're specifically for something. Wheel chocks or lumps of wood, but that's all by the by, because what you really want is a ramp, isn't it? A pit also works, but all these things, sadly, there is no one perfect solution. So ramps, 2 post, 4 post. 4 post, very good. Very, very big, very big. It wouldn't even fit in this room. I think it's more than 5 meters. But very good in that if you've got a massive space, you can move them around, not necessarily bolted to the floor. And they're very quick. You can drive straight up on them, up in the air, and get on with something. But then, obviously, you do sort of need a jacking beam in them, because if you want to get the wheels off, that. Then if you're working in around the suspension, you've got great big plates in the way. You've got just the size of the ramp as well, which is where 2 post comes in. 2 posts are very, very small. That's the only footprint. You'd be surprised how annoying having these here is sometimes. But again, very good. When you're not used to it, a faff to get a car on. My God, lining one up for the middle of the sort of weight distribution of a car, especially if you're taking the engine out, be wary, or putting one in. But once you go over that faff, once you get used to it, they're very good. Though there are some things to remember. And the first one is height. Remember, no problem there, is there? Look, if I just, it's that high, loads of room to the roof, but you do have a car on them. So, when I've got particularly long cars in here, the Land Rover, you have to remember, you've got the thing for the roller shutter and the back of the shed. You also have the roof. Now, I'm very lucky. Look at that. Height, not an issue. But bear it in mind, if you're going to lift a Land Rover, imagine the Land Rover's on that. There's a load of car on top as well, of whatever height you've got on there. So bear that in mind. Also, if you're very, very tall, sometimes they're not perfect. I'm alright. I'm 5'9", 10, 11, something like that. Now, when I bought it, I thought, great, I can lift all cars. Turns out that's not true though. No one tells you this. You get different length arms. So it comes with a set of 4 long arms, which is no good because, especially with German cars, the jacking points tend to be quite close together and near the edges of the ramp if you've got something particularly long. I had the Mercedes 2002 SL55. No hope with those long arms on. So you'll probably need 1 pair of short arms. That's a load of cost. You might need some other arms as well. You might need extenders. So basically the little pad would come out and you'd have a long bit of metal in there and the pad would go on top. because you might have the jacking, you might have a load of bodywork here and the jacking point up here. Now, no, that's a deal breaker, but it's something to bear in mind. Cost-wise, oh, one other thing actually, that metal plate on the floor, that has something sounds fruity. That has the hydraulic lines in it, go from one side to the other. You can get them with an extended top, and then you'd have the bar go over the top, and you'd have nothing on the floor. If you can fit that in, do it. I thought that wouldn't be annoying. It's really annoying. Because when you're trying to put an engine or something in, and say you got it on your trolley or whatever, that, I guarantee you, is in the way, because it's across the middle of the car, isn't it? So you can't hoik something sort of over it. So go for the option with the pipes over the top, if you can. So this was supplied by Twinbush, who are based in Kettering, which is pretty local to me. Brilliant company, lovely guys in there. They've got a great showroom. You can see the stuff, sort of play with it, touch and feel, get good advice off them. They told me all about the arms, other accessories and stuff. I've had this now for nearly 2 years. I've never had a single problem with it. Every now and again I sort of true up the arms, there's adjustment. So basically you've got a master side which is straight on the motor, and then the sort of slave, and there's some wire ropes in between as well, and it's the tension of those ropes. If you hear someone's ramp going up and it's going da-donk, 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 that's wrong. The clicks are the pins going to the safety mechanisms. They should click at the same time. It means the ramp's level as it goes up. If you're hearing donk donk, it's like that. It doesn't make too much difference because you're meant to go all the way up, and then you release the pressure and it comes down. They'll settle on the same stops anyway, but you don't really want to be lifting your car on the piss, do you? Cost wise, this is the 4.2 ton. This is the 4.2 ton full height one without the sort of extension for the pipes. When I bought it, it was about 1,500 quid. I think they're now 1,900. Second-hand ones are a good shout, but this is a 16 amp single phase motor, which means you can get that in any domestic garage, which is awesome. Brilliant idea. And it will still lift to 4.2 tons. So just bear in mind, buying a second-hand one, chances are they're going to be 3-phase or single phase, but a much larger supply because they're converted. I think they're great. 4 posters are more expensive again. If you've got a small garage, they actually do a lower height version of this, which is brilliant. Yeah, I don't have a bad word to say about them. I think they're brilliant service, brilliant price. It's a really reliable bit of kit. But you will need a step ladder to get in it. That, by the way, if you're wondering, is the wiring diagram for that Silver Shadow. Yeah, can you imagine how fun that was? So really, I mean, that's sort of it. That's my 2 years of experience of owning a really nice little garage. It's not my profession. I don't do, like paid stuff in it. This is all my silly projects. Any questions, please fire away. I did say about the ramp actually, if you look up and get blinded by a light, they make a good leg for a little mezzanine floor. But no, hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's a bit different from everything else we've done, but when I was doing all this, I found these sort of videos really helpful, so it's giving a bit back, isn't it? Thank you very much. I think I'm going to fit a clutch to something or do some brake lines. Cheers mate, thanks mate, bye.